What are the monsters called? Oh no, not like that. I wonder what they call it in your country where you hunt monsters and get rewarded by the city via the guild, based on how strong the monsters were. That thing ain't understood now. Peter's work wasn't really work. They would grind monsters for drops, just like in Yggdrasil and similar games. If you want to make a living, it has to be done, the druid Dine solemnly noted. Then Luckrat chimed in, we get to eat. Things are less dangerous for other people. Merchants can travel safely. The country can collect their taxes. Nobody loses. Nowadays, any country with guilds has this system, but it is surprising because even just 5 years ago, it wasn't like that, Ninja said, and everyone nodded nostalgically. They practically forgot about Aints and started going off on various tangents. He couldn't participate in the conversation at all. It would be too suspicious if he knew nothing about the country he was in, so he decided to just listen silently. Long live the Golden Princess, right? The proposal ran into some setbacks, but I heard she was motioning to get rid of the foot tax for adventurers too. Whoa. It's amazing that she thought so highly of us. Right, she did all that even though we were armed groups that haven't proven our loyalty to the kingdom. Depending on the team, some might even be enemies. Not even the Empire is that tolerant. That princess really does have some wonderful ideas, even though they mostly get shot down. I hope I get to marry a lady that gorgeous. You got a lot of work to do if you were hoping to join the ranks of the nobles. No way, no way. That stiff, formal life isn't for me. Oh, come on, it'd be great to be a noble. It is established by the country that you get to screw over the people and do whatever you want. The true feelings behind Ninja's smile were beginning to show. Aints knit his non-existent brow under his helmet, but Narbril was unfazed. Luckrat called out in a purposely light-hearted voice, yikes, always with the harsh words, you hate the nobles as usual, huh? I know that some of them are honest people, but as someone whose older sister was abducted by those pigs, I just can well, this conversation has taken an unexpected turn. We probably don't need to discuss this sort of thing in front of Momon and Nabe. On board with Dine's course correction, Peter cleared his throat rather deliberately and continued his explanation. Well, so that's about it. We'll be on the lookout for monsters in this area. This close to civilization there probably won't be anything too strong. I hope that doesn't bother you, Momon. Peter took out a sheet of parchment and opened it across the middle of the table. It seemed to be a rough map of the area, with groves, forests, rivers, and other features indicated. Our basic plan is to head south and hunt around here. He started from the middle of the parchment and traced down with his finger to an area near a forest in the south. We'll mainly be fighting monsters that come out of the forest on the slain theocracy border. The only monsters likely to use weapons or launch an attack on someone with an escort are goblins, and they the nastiest. Yeah, they weak though, so even if we take them out, the pay is peanuts. Aints wondered a bit about their relaxed attitude. The goblins he'd known in Yggdrasil all had various names, and had been anywhere from level 1 to 50. It wasn't possible to lump them all together like that. If they weren't careful, they could find themselves in trouble. Are they so laid back because they sure high-level goblins won't show up around here, or is it because goblins in this world just aren't so tough? There aren't any strong goblins? Yes, there are, but they don't hide out in the forest we headed to. The strong goblins lead tribes. I can imagine they have their whole tribe attack. Goblins are also aware of how far the human sphere of influence extends. They know how much of a pain a huge invasion would be, especially from the stronger, more clever, elite types. Plus, if Nabe can use tier 3 magic, then even the more elite types will be a piece of cake. I see. I just want you to be aware that some goblins can use tier 3 magic too. Just for reference, would you mind telling me the names of the monsters we are likely to encounter? All the Swords of Darkness members immediately looked at Ninja. He assumed a professorial expression and began his explanation. The monsters we often encounter are goblins and their pet wolves. I have no records of encountering any other wild beasts that put up much of a fight in this area. On the plain, the most dangerous thing we could encounter would probably be an ogre, so we won't be going into the forest. No, the forest is quite dangerous. We could probably handle jumping leeches and giant beetles, but the hanging spiders that dangle down from the trees and the forest worms that come out of the ground to swallow you whole are a bit tough. I I see, Aints nodded. So we'll fight the monsters that spill out of the forest onto the grass. So that's the job, Momon. How about it? Will you help us out? I suppose, but actually before that, could you tell me what kind of reward we'll get? Oh yeah, that is important, isn't it? Since there are two teams, yours and mine, we'll split it in half. Considering the number of members in each team, that's awfully nice and generous of you. But if some monsters appear, we'll have you guys take half of them, and we can only use up to tier 2 magic. I think it balances out if you take those things into account. Aints pretended to think for a moment and then nodded. That's fine with me, it's a deal, and since we're going to be working together for a while, I'll show you my face. Aints removed his helmet. Mild surprise registered on the faces of the 4 adventurers. Black hair and black eyes, like Nabe. You're definitely not from around here. I heard that down south there's a country where people look like you. Are you from that area? Yeah, I traveled a pretty long way. He's older than I thought. He's kind of an old dude. Don't be rude. A warrior on a level equal to a tier 3 magic user would be about that age. Miss Nabe must have learned so fast. Aints had sharp enough hearing to pick up the other 3's whispers. He felt a little young to be called an old dude, but compared to these kids, he probably was old. Considering people came of age here at 16, he was quite mature. Well, now that you've seen my face, I'll cover it up again, he said, replacing his helmet. If it got around that we were both foreigners, there might be trouble. He smiled under his helmet. He used a low-tier illusion that would break if it were touched, but he was glad he thought of it. Okay, if we were going to go hunting together, we should get any questions out of the way ahead of time. Do you have anything you'd like to ask? Yes. In response to Aints' question, a hand flew into the air. It was Luckrut. When he saw no one else had anything to ask, he threw a question loudly at Narbril. What exactly is the relationship between you two? Silence. Aints couldn't fathom why he would ask such a thing. Peter and the rest could, though, and keenly. We were friends. Luckrut's reaction to Aints' answer completely disrupted the mood of the meeting. I am in love. It's love at first sight. Will you go out with me? Everyone stared at him. When they realized he hadn't said it as a well-intentioned joke, their eyes moved to Narbril. Under everyone's gaze, she sighed before replying, Shut up, you slug. Don't speak to me again until you know your place, or I'll rip out your tongue. A silence descended, incomparably more still than the previous one. Before Aints could get a word out, Luckrut was talking. Thank you very much for that intense rejection. Let us start as friends. Drop dead, maggot. As if I'd be your friend. Do you want me to gouge out your eyes with a spoon? Peter and Aints looked away from the back and forth and bowed to each other. I am sorry my friend is causing trouble. Not at all, I am the one who should be apologizing. Okay, can we say that no one has any questions? Peter addressed the group once more, leaving out Luckrut with his goofy grin and icy Narbril. Then let us head out once you're ready. Our preparations have already been made. At the word preparations, Aints remembered something. He purchased the minimum necessary provisions from the innkeeper, but neither he nor Narbril required bulky food and drink. It would be suspicious if they ate nothing, so he supposed it was necessary to some extent. Okay, we'll be ready to leave once we replenish our food supply. Just food. If you don't need to buy from a particular store, the desk has non-perishables. They can get you ready in no time. Oh, that sounds good. And then we can leave right away. Shall we go then? They all stood up and left the meeting room. When they got back to reception, there were more adventurers around than before. Several groups had gathered around where the parchments were posted, but almost everyone was focused on one boy. The blonde youth was talking with one of the receptionists. The other two were listening in. The atmosphere had completely changed from the earlier bustle. Just then, the receptionist's mouth made a perfect O of surprise. Her line of sight led to Aints. What the heck? As Aints wondered what was going on, the receptionist stood up and came over. You have been requested by name. At her words, the vibe in the room changed dramatically. Aints felt the unreserved stares of numerous curious eyes. The members of the Swords of Darkness also seemed surprised. Narbril made a slight move in response to the mysterious change in atmosphere. She was shifting just in case she had to deal with a situation, preparing for combat. Narbril's movements were bad, no matter what her reason. She may very well have been acting to protect him after detecting something off about the vibe. But it wasn't appropriate here. Or rather, someone with common sense wouldn't do what she was doing. Even if she was prioritizing Ain's safety above all else, she was being too thoughtless. That idiot. She's as bad as albedo, but Gar, what is she thinking? Actually, she's probably not thinking. She looks down on humans, so to her, it would be like stepping on some noisy bugs. It made sense to have that attitude, since Ain's Ulgaun was a guild made up entirely of grotesques, but there was still a time and a place for it. Ain's put his head in his hands. He wanted to ask his old guildmates why all their NPCs were like this. He didn't care what kind of backstory they assigned them, at least give them minimum interpersonal skills. They should be able to read a room and understand the context of their actions. He didn't have time to reprimand her now, but he didn't know what would happen if people picked up on the fact that she was going into combat mode. He quickly karate chopped her on the head, not with full strength of course, but the pain he inflicted with his gauntleted hand had apparently been pretty serious. Narbril looked up at him, her tearful eyes taken over by surprise and confusion. Completely ignoring her, Ain't asked the receptionist, by who? The minute he said it, he felt stupid. It had to have been that boy, Enfira Baylor. Ain't realized it was the name he heard earlier. The boy was already approaching. Nice to meet you. I am the one who made the request. He tilted his head and Ain't reciprocated. So about the request he started to speak, but Ain't held up a hand to stop him. I am terribly sorry, but I am already contracted for another job. I can take on your request right away. A commotion went through the room. The Swords of Darkness members were especially startled. But Momon, he's requesting you. Seeing Peter's reaction, Ain't wondered if a request by name was really worth getting so excited about. But that may be, but it's only right to prioritize the previous engagement, don't you think? It seemed Ain's conclusion was not mistaken. Some of the onlooking adventurers nodded he made a favorable impression. But our request can even properly be called a request. And we can even pay you if we don't encounter any monsters, Peter mumbled. The difference in value of the work between a request from this boy, who is not only famous himself, but also has a famous grandmother and roaming around hunting monsters, is enormous. That must be why Peter is trying to give me some space. Guessing that was the case, Ain't replied with kindness in his voice. Then how about this, Peter? I haven't heard anything about the job or the compensation, so I'll listen to what Mr. Baylor has to say, and then we can decide. That's fine with me. We'd like to go sooner rather than later, but we weren't even planning on today or tomorrow anyhow. Then let us have the Swords of Darkness come while we talk it over. If we can come to an agreement, or rather, if we can I'll go ahead and prioritize my previous engagement. What, you want us in your meeting? Yes. As a concerned party, your input is important to me. Once the Swords of Darkness agreed to the plan, they all returned to the meeting room they had just come from. Well, this is a bit hectic, Ain't thought. He smiled wryly and sat in the same seat as before. Narbril sat next to him again, and Enfira sat one seat down from her. The Swords of Darkness members all took the same seats as before, like Ain't. Enfira was the first to speak. The woman at reception mentioned my name, but allow me to introduce myself. My name is Enfira Baylor. I am an apothecary in this city. I am planning to go to a nearby forest. As you know, the forest is a dangerous place, so I'd like you to escort me, and if possible, help me collect medicinal herbs. An escort job, I see. Ain't nodded confidently, but privately he thought it sounded a little troublesome. Ain't knew he was strong. If he teamed up with Narbril, they could probably annihilate any monster that came at them. The problem was that when it came to escort duty, he wasn't so certain he could pull it off. As casters, neither he nor Narbril had the tanking skills useful for guarding someone. Compensation would be a fixed amount. How convenient that it's an escort job. Hey Peter, what would you say to me hiring you instead? For an escort job in the woods collecting herbs, wouldn't it be better to have a ranger and a druid along? Indeed, that is very perceptive of you, Momon. Druids are really in their element in the forest. I'd probably be even more useful than Luckrut. Some pride slipped into Dine's dignified tone. Luckrut didn't seem so amused. Keep talking, Dine. With my druid powers, it's a given that I'd be more useful. And don't forget that I dabble in the medicinal arts. I am game, Peter. Seems like I need to show Mr. Druid here who has the superior gathering skills. Then that seems fine. And if any monsters show up along the way, we can slay them and get the reward from the city too. Mr. Belair's compensation can be split by head count, right, Peter? I have no objection if it's all right with you, Momman. Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Belair. If you don't mind, we'd all like to take on your request. Oh, that is fine with me. Then I am looking forward to working with all of you. You can call me Enfira. Then they all introduced themselves to Enfira. Narbril used her sharp tongue on Luckrut a couple of times, but there wasn't any real trouble. Our plan will be my normal pattern. We will proceed to the village of Khan, get a place to stay, and then head to the forest. The time we spend gathering herbs will depend on how much we can get, but it will be 3 days at most. It has usually been 2 days. How will we get there? I have one single horse cart, but that is where the bottles for the herbs will go, so there won't be room to carry everyone. Can we restock provisions in Khan? Water is no problem, but food might be difficult. It is not a very big village. The Swords of Darkness discussed preparations among themselves and peppered Enfira with questions. Then Ain't spoke up. Do you mind if I ask some questions? Enfira smiled and said to go ahead. So Ain't asked his first question. Why did you specifically want me? I only recently boarded a carriage and arrived here. I have no friends in this city and nobody knows me. Yet you requested me. You mentioned you have a pattern, so doesn't that mean you've been hiring a different adventurer up till now? What happened to that person? Ain's eyes were sharp under his helmet. He didn't recall ever being introduced to this boy. If his true identity had been discovered, he would need to take a different approach with his disguise. He tried to discover the boy's real motives, but he couldn't detect changes in his eyes because of the long hair that covered half of his face. As Aints was wondering if he was overthinking things, Enfira spoke. The person I used to hire left Rantle to go to a different city. That is why I was looking for someone new. And then actually, I heard about the incident at the inn from someone who came to my shop. The incident at the inn? Yes, how you beat up an adventurer rank above you in the blink of an eye. I see. He had shown off his strength there to try to spread his name, and it seemed like it had worked. Aints was about convinced when Enfira joked, plus, copper-plate adventurers cost less, right? I'd like it if we could work together for some time. Ha ha, that is right. Aints could certainly understand the concept of getting in on the ground floor. He felt his caution being dispelled, but there was one thing he feared. If that were the case as Aints was thinking it over, some other questions were asked, and Enfira answered them. When it seemed like the questions had petered out, Enfira raised his voice. Then, let us get ready and be off. In the dead of night, a hooded shadow slipped into Rantle's huge graveyard. The jet-black hooded cape, combined with the shadow's singular way of moving, keeping its shoulders and hips from bouncing, made it look like a ghost. It nimbly avoided all the magical light sources that had been placed around the graveyard. It went deeper and deeper. Before long, it came upon a mausoleum. The shadow slowly removed its hood. It was a young human woman. She was somewhere around 20 years old. Her face was attractive, but in a vaguely feline way. She had ample charm. There was also something dangerous about her, like she might reveal her true nature as a carnivorous beast at any moment. This is the place, she said playfully. She smoothed back her short blonde hair before pushing open the stone door. A sound came from beneath her cape. It was like the soft rubbing of metal on metal, almost exactly like chain mail. When she entered the mausoleum, there were no bodies on the stone platforms. The ornaments for praying for the departed souls had already been taken down. Still, a cloying smell tingled her nose. It was as if the rocks had absorbed tons of incense. With a slight wrinkle in her brow, she approached a large platform in the back. Let us see, humming. She pressed one of the surprisingly detailed carvings near its base. Something went ker-chk as if catching. A beat later, the platform rumbled to the side to reveal a staircase leading underground. I am coming in, she shouted down the stairs, stretching the final vowel in a carefree way, and began her descent. There was one turn along the way. At the bottom yawned a huge cavern. The walls and floor were dirt, but since it was partially man-made, it didn't seem like it would collapse anytime soon. The air wasn't stale either. It wasn't clear where it was coming in from, but it was fresh. This place was not part of the graveyard. No, it was something far more sinister. Strange tapestries hung from the walls. Below them burned a number of bright red candles with blood mixed into the wax. These candles sent up the stench of scorched gore as they gave off their dim glow. Among the countless shadows cast by the dancing light were several holes. These holes were big enough for humans to pass through and reeked in the putrid way only lower-tier undead do. The woman swept her eyes across the room before focusing on one point.